right now by the team behind Cosmic Cowboy. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves? We can start at the front.
Yep, I'm Felix. I'm the artist. I was in charge of pretty much everything you see on the screen, spare a few assets.
I'm Jack. I'm the level designer, game designer, and sound designer.
And I'm Blue. I've been the primary mechanics designer as well as voice director.
Yeah, excellent. So obviously, you can start kind of playing if you want to, but Cosmic Cowboy certainly is a very ambitious project, quite a small team, as I understand. What was sort of the kind of inspirations behind taking on this type of project? It's quite ambitious for quite the team size you had.
Well, initially, it had a bit of a different start to the state we currently see it in. It was, we were taking inspiration from a lot of kind of DS games. We were going to have a dual monitor split, and some of that still holds over. The not quite 4:3 aspect ratio. Actually, it might be 4:3.
It's
right
4:3, yeah.
It's 4:3 right now, so it's going to be done then split in half to, showcase. It's still got some of that DNA in there, but we were going to do like a DS light, space game, and then from there we kind of kept on taking further steps of removal from there until we eventually went. You know what? Actually, I was the one who suggested the pivot to a space western because after all, I'd been doing research over the summer, being like, hey, I want to check some other things out, get a proper base of research before we kind of jump into this. I was like, oh, let's do this, and then from there, after bringing it to the rest of the team, everyone seemed very on board. So people were suggesting, there's things like Borderlands and the stuff that we'd like to do. And so, definitively from the art style, we've taken inspiration from things such as that. So it's been a very kind of step-by-step process of figuring each of these individual changes out.
No, that's cool. And kind of you mentioned art, so if you want to jump in a little bit on this, kind of what made you kind of say what cuts as Western versus like the kind of cyberpunk? What kind of how was that process of managing those two very distinct styles and kind of bringing that together?
It was pretty tough at first. I looked at anime a lot, like Trigun Stampede, which is pretty cool. So that kind of inspired a lot of the concepts. I also looked at Cowboy Bebop for the kind of like mix of the sci-fi Western genre. And then stuff like Disco Elysium as well for some of the concept art. But yeah, a lot of it was, in the end, the color coding, I think really like tied everything together in the actual game.
Very, very cool. So obviously, this is a very ambitious project, for, as I say, a small team. But, I'm sure there were plenty of struggles. But in terms of putting that aside, what has been the most satisfying? What has been your favorite part of working on this project across its development?
I'd say, for me personally, is because we now have a Steam page, and finally having a Steam page we've actually trying to publish something now. It's not just on itch now. It's not just an indie game on itch. It's an indie game on Steam. Like for me personally, that's a massive achievement.
So what you're saying is Cosmic Cowboy on Steam.
Wishlist today.
Yeah, make sure you go wishlist. That'd be very much appreciated. But following from Jack said, having it on Steam and having it, it feels something more than just the small student game. It feels bigger than that now, which has been massive for team morale especially.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's always, I think, there's that bit at the start where everyone's super excited on a project and you have the kind of middle part where it starts to dip. And then at the end when you're like, now we can kind of actually show people what we've been working on. It's very kind of satisfying. Are you all happy with how it's kind of turned out so far?
Oh,
yeah, very.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You should be. So kind of jumping in, I mentioned a little bit like I'm sure there were plenty of challenges and obstacles and hurdles to jump through. What were some of the big contributing factors that helped kind of, I guess, shape the game? Or what do you think those obstacles that you managed to overcome or work around, what were those and kind of how did that change the game?
Well, as currently the dev team is just 4 of us right now. So there's obviously Felix, Jack and myself, and then of course we have a programmer, Ronnie, who's been absolutely fantastic. But the actual route of development of it has been somewhat spotty at points where we started off with 3 more members on the team. We were going to have 1 more at the start, but then they ended up not making it to join the team properly, full-time, and then At the start of development, we had 2 other members be brought on that just never ended up sticking with the project through a variety of reasons, personal matters or deciding that this wasn't the quite right project for them. So we originally had like an animator and a writer who eventually left, and so that has caused, obviously some hang-ups here and there, and it's been a challenge for us to try and work around. Obviously, because it's an RPG, it's a narrative, we're trying to bring a story to this. And then, halfway through development cycle, losing our writer it was a blow, of course, but...
do you find that changed the scope, or how much did that really, in terms of your vision, were you kind of set on things at that point, or?
We had an idea of what we were set on, and we definitely had to start pivoting. From there, it was like, me and Jack ended up taking a lot of that workload that the writer had onboarded. Just being, okay, now we need to be the ones to write all the scripts. So Jack took the primary role of writing the bulk of the scripts, and then I would be script editor, going through, making any changes, adding any additional little scenes here and there. But it definitely has ended up meaning that kind of the story and how much dialogue and narrative there's been has taken a bit of a step back. And that's not... that is different from our initial vision, but we've also, incorporated that now into our current vision and how we plan on taking things. So it was definitely a hurdle or within that development cycle, but it's been, it's been invaluable in terms of, developing our skills and learning how to deal with all of this.
Excellent. So I can see you've just finished the kind of opening level. I know now that this is kind of where the kind of RPG elements sort of
opens up a lot now in terms of customization. So there's a lot of elements from the original XCOM and then the original Fallout way back when it was turn-based, and the art style is like sort of similar to Borderlands, so it's like a fusion of all 3 games. So the first level sort of, this is how you play the game, and then finally you get the RPG elements. It's like, okay, now you can like finally customize, do you want to increase health or increase damage? So at the end of every level, you can really spec into what you want to be now. Yeah.
And have you found that, when you've had people playtesting stuff, there's been a lot of really interesting or variety of people playing the game in a way that you weren't expecting, or has it been sort of you've accounted for a lot of the stuff and given people more interesting direction to kind of go in?
I would say we've accounted for a lot of stuff. I mean, at the start, when it wasn't an RPG, where we didn't have the skill select system, there was no replayability. It's like you play it once, like, okay, I've seen everything. But now you can play it and it's like, okay, well, I did the game as a tank, I had lots of health, I can go for everything else. But what if I try and do something different? What if I just dump all my skills into accuracy so I don't miss any shot? So there's a lot of replayability now. It's just like you can go in and I can be like a stealth guy, or I can be an actual cowboy, it can be like I never miss or something like that. So there's a lot of replayability now, which we didn't have before.
So what's we can go through everyone, but what's your favorite kind of setup?
I think for me, it's having tons of like crit. So always doing critical damage, critical hits, just one-shotting enemies continuously. But obviously the downside is you don't have lots of health. So everything has its
kind of
drawbacks.
blast cannon. Yeah. No, cool. Do anyone else have a different playstyle, or are you all very crit main?
Yeah, for me it's just run through, avoid the enemies,
Totally just objective focus, just
get through the levels. Yeah. Oh, that's me.
I find I tend to strike a little bit of a medium between them. I like to spec a lot into mobility, and then kind of once I hit certain thresholds, just start, pumping into crit just for... I find they're a very dynamic play style, leave it up to chance, and if I hit, I die. Well, if I get hit, I die, but if I hit, I win and just absolutely running through.
No, cool.
But we've seen a diversity in play styles, where, a lot of people kind of follow a standard norm that we expect, but, there are extremes on either side, which has been great to see.
Oh, that's cool. So for anyone who wasn't kind of paying attention, where are we at in the story now?
So in terms of story, the first level, it's you arrive at this convoy that you've just ambushed, and you get to the end and you pick up this mysterious package. We have no idea what it is, but you figure out who it's going to, and in terms of story, it's an old associate of the main character who was way back when was a part of this guy's gang, and so they're not on the best of terms. So he's figured out, if I know who it's going to, perhaps this guy can explain it. So in terms of the second level now, you're being hunted down by the people that had the convoy. So you're now trying to escape them. So you're trying to figure out a way, how do I escape the city? So right now you're in some sort of dock yard sort of area. So you're trying to smuggle your way onto a ship, which is bound to leave into where his associate is.
Cool.
So right now, what I'm trying to do is just get from one side of the map to the other. There is going to be a turn-based mechanic on this level eventually where you have like 20 or 30 turns to get to the level.
Yeah.
If not, the ship leaves, you have to restart.
Yeah. You missed the ship.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
No, cool. I think that's, like I say, XCOM, the more recent kind of Firaxis reboots, they took on a lot of, it seems a lot of our players just sat in a corner with sniper rifles, and maybe we don't want them to do that, so they kind of introduced those kind of turn-based mechanics to kind of give that sort of push. So it's really cool that, you kind of have plans, and it's still very much in development, and that kind of leads into the next one of kind of, what do you think in terms of, individually, obviously you have your own vision for where you want this to go, but what do you think collectively is your kind of next step as a team for taking this? Obviously, huge success on Steam and then, whatever else, but, immediately, what are the next steps?
I mean, our next big plan is to just develop further levels. So currently we have 2 in this current build, and the 3rd level, which is a boss battle, is quite far ways into development and nearing the end of it. Initially, we had planned actually to have it ready for Expo to showcase. However, we just hit a couple of roadblocks within development, which...
That does happen.
is to be expected. It's a shame we didn't manage to get it ready in time, but I prefer to have something that's a bit more, fully cooked.
Yeah.
And not kind of take it out too early and...
Yeah, I think
if that causes any problems.
It's always sad to be in the stage where we have something that it's almost there, but it's not, and you always want to show things in the best possible light.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but I think it was a good call.
Yeah. So, but going further levels, I think for our release we're aiming for about 9 to 10 levels. So I think each level we're estimating to take about 20 minutes on a first playthrough. Jack's played this innumerable times, so he's pretty quick with it. But we're expecting most levels to take about 20 minutes pop, so about 10 levels. We're estimating, with potentially, some dialogue scenes and such in between, maybe about a little over 4 hours of gameplay to have. So that's what we're kind of gunning for, and then as far as the next immediate steps, we've been developing universal controller support. So currently, we have mouse and keyboard, and we do have, the beginnings of universal controller support, but we're going to make further edits to that to make that a truly cohesive experience and not just something that technically works.
Yeah, we did it so we can tick the box.
Yeah, we want to make that a fully fleshed way to experience the game, because too often, you'll see games that are either ported to controller or to PC that it's it's there, but it doesn't really work, and it can be a bit frustrating.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I mean, you kind of did say initially about kind of DS style, kind of split screen and stuff. Is the idea then at current stage to kind of push this more Steam Deck kind of support, etc., like that sort of avenue, or is that something you'd considered?
Steam Deck actually isn't something we'd properly considered, but we right now we're just gunning for a general mouse and keyboard market. But with the development of universal controller support and all of this, we are hoping if we can build a bit of attention behind us, once the Steam release comes out, and if we can, if that can kind of pick up a little bit, getting that onto other consoles, such as Xbox, or actually I think Switch would be quite good as well. Just something you can pick up and play as you go. That is 100% something we'd be interested in. It's just a case of garnering enough attention so that we can
get to dev kits and everything else. No, cool. In terms of, sort of this as an overall process, because obviously as much as you're now getting ready to go into industry, you are still technically students. So, jumping in on the kind of learning aspect, what do you think has been sort of the most valuable lesson, or the kind of biggest, I wish I'd known this, kind of what do you think is the kind of bigger lessons that you've learned from this project? I'm sure there's many, so not all of them, but,
I think for me personally is I've always worked in big teams. And I've actually come to realize that smaller teams are, in terms of development, and if you all put your minds to it, it works so much better because none of us have an excuse to slack off. Like if we say, oh, we're gonna get this done, and it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. It's not like someone else can pick it up. So I personally have enjoyed working in a smaller team compared to a bigger team, because in a bigger team, someone can say, oh, I'm not gonna do this, and then someone else can pick it up. But if I don't get the writing done, that means the voice actors can't go in, and if I don't do the sound, so there's a lot of pressure on us being in a small team, but I think we've all managed it fine, and I think we've all personally experienced the smaller team's just better.
So you've found the kind of pressure of having a smaller team of I have to be the one to do this, otherwise it's not happening. That's been helpful for your kind of own growth then?
Yeah, it's been very helpful.
There's definitely a high level of kind of accountability within the team. If it's a case like Jack said, it's you have to get this done because everyone else just has 1,001 things. There's no time to just be dawdling, but
I suppose especially on the art side, as the artist is like, if you aren't on top of the art, that definitely isn't going to be happening, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like as the only artist, obviously from the start, I was thinking, how am I going to do all of this? We have a few asset packs, but other than that, it was a huge learning curve trying to learn how to, implement the shader or, just kind of juggle all the different things that you have to do to make a game from a visual standpoint.
Anyone who says making games is easy has clearly never worked on a kind of longer form project. But in terms of managing not just the game but also your own studies and everything else, it's a big undertaking.
Yeah.
So you guys, I assume, based on the fact that you're putting this on Steam, this is something that you're wanting to go forward with and kind of actually kind of work on and try and turn into kind of a company, or is it just you want to get this out the door, get it happy, and then go job hunting? Is this something that that your vision for this is now make a company and take that forward, or?
I think everyone on the team has slightly different plans post this kind of releasing. So I believe we have an estimated release date on Steam.
Yeah, we do September.
So September 9th is currently what our estimated goal is. So up until that date, we all of us plan on really pushing and working on this to make it the best we can, because really do want the best for this project. We're all very, very passionate about it, which is, kind of what the game's built on. With a team of this size and a game of this scope, especially for that, it has to be built on that passion. But post that, everyone has slightly different kind of plans and ideas. Some people are planning on going and starting their own, one-man dev projects. Some of us plan on going on to do masters, and then others plan on trying to get a job straight in the industry. But that's kind of been something we've known from the start. But
so you've been very kind of transparent with each other about what your kind of end goals were.
Yeah. Because you kind of need to a certain extent with a project like this, especially, my number one key takeaway for this has been communication. Because, transparency and kind of honesty about what's happening with everyone, what's going on, and everything has been tantamount to the most important
Is there
thing.
any kind of one thing that you think, in terms of communication that really helped you more than, just being in this kind of small team and needing to communicate? Is there any particular platforms, or have you found, you went to, we have daily stand-ups, or is there any particular thing that you would say helped the most in terms of aiding your communication? Or is it just that kind of honesty with each other?
To be honest, I would say honesty. We do frequently, just in general, talk to each other, just be like, hey, how are things going? All of that, just, developing a level of just familiarity and comfort, but also just a certain extent of just brutal honesty of like, hey, if work can't be done, people need to know.
Yeah.
And there's always a feeling, being like, but people need this work to be done. So maybe if I don't talk about it, no one will notice that I haven't done the work, and it'll be fine. Whereas you can't really do that.
Yeah.
And so, being brutally honest with each other and being like, hey, I've got too much work on for this week. I can't do this and this, or I need to step it back. And just kind of that level of honesty with each other in the team has been vital for this. So yeah, even if it's something you don't necessarily want to address, like, hey, I can't do the work today because I'm busy, it's something you have to talk about.
Yeah, because, like I say, for the health of the project, these things do kind of have to happen. Unfortunately, work at points does need to materialize. I think it's a very easy kind of thing, though. If I don't see it, it's not real.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's a typical thing you'll see. I think people will be doing that well after you, and people have been doing it since well before your time.
Oh yeah, 100%. So having to kind of look that in the eye and be like, I really don't want, I don't want to be the person to send that message and being like, hey guys, I can't finish the work that you need done by Monday. But you need that level of communication.
It's a kind of level of professionalism as well to be able to kind of say, this is where we're at, this is just the truth of it, and kind of
100%.
move on.
You also don't want to be wasting other people's time because, if I can't get this work done, that's some of this is just waterfalled. It takes someone else to do one job for you to do another. However, there's always 1,000 things to be done. So if you all have that level of honest communication about this, you'd be like, you know what, I can't do that one job that you need me to do, but there's another job that I can just move up the priority list, tackle that instead, while you deal with any roadblocks that you've suddenly hit, and kind of reshuffling, being pretty dynamic with your ability to reshuffle is pretty important.
One might almost hazard to say being agile.
One might even say that.
I feel like I have to throw that in, as a requirement. But no, it sounds, like you guys have definitely come a very long way from the kind of initial starting project. I know before we kind of started, you had said that most of you weren't, best friends or anything. You were aware of each other kind of, but weren't super close.
I was only aware of Jack as a friend of a friend. But yeah, no, it's been fantastic. Getting to work with everyone on this team. Everyone's been absolutely fantastic.
Have you found that actually in terms of kind of working on the project together with people that you aren't necessarily, best friends with, having to be able to actually be honest from each other from the start and kind of learn about each other has been more helpful?
Yeah, I think personally for me, being in a team project, it's easier working with people you don't really know. Because if you form a team with like your 5 best friends and you at some point you're going to argue, and it's not going to go too well. But if it's with people you semi-know but don't really know, it's easier to get along. Hey, I can't do this. Oh, don't worry about it. But if it's in a friendship group, it's like, oh, well, whatever,
Yeah.
So it's definitely easier doing and forming a group with people you don't really know. Plus, you get to meet some new people, so that's a cool thing.
And it's always nice to work with a variety of people than kind of the same people that you always hang around with. Have you found that, hopefully, maybe not best friends, but have you found that, after this, you would work with each other again, or, you kind of have built that sort of, you respect professional boundaries, everything else, but do you feel like, you would happily work with each other again going forward?
Oh yeah, we have to work. We have to work with each other in September anyway. So
we've got a few more months ahead of us of pursuing this further than just working as a uni team. But
I can see just as we kind of have you cycled into the gallery, you're kind of going through some.
Yeah,
of the other...
I finished the second level. So what we have is just a concept art gallery. It's just a cool thing to just have in a little extra.
Yeah. No, it's nice. And it's always nice, in kind of games where you have those as unlockables or something that, people are like, oh, you finished these levels, here's some of the concept art, or you've intercepted a transmission, here's this. But no, like it's one of those things where I think you have all worked very, very hard on this, and that does show, It's certainly not an easy thing to, tackle something as ambitious with voice acting, all the art assets, multiple levels, turn-based tactical mechanics with leveling up. In terms of, meeting voice actors and kind of all the different assets and parts that went into this, is there any one particular thing that you're like, I wish I had done this differently? Now that I've gone through the process of doing it, I wish I had known this. Any sage advice for others going forward?
I mean, for me, just from the artist standpoint, it's animation. So we used Mixmo, which is like an auto rigging and auto kind of animation software. But I figured out how to rig and animate right at the end. And I kind of wanted to do that from the very start. So I think if I had known that from the start, I would have tried to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was able to focus on other stuff instead. Yeah.
I think personally for me, don't be afraid to go to uni to ask for like help, because from the start there was 4 of us, and there was no way we could build an entire game with environment assets, everything. So we just went to uni. Hey, what can we do? You know, and they said, well, we'll get you an asset pack. So we're very generously, they've been giving us an asset pack. You know, there's done all the environments. You know, I don't think without that asset pack would probably be stuck doing like grey boxing and just a bunch of blocks. So I think definitely for new third years coming on, if you have a small group or even like a big group, but you're missing a discipline, just go to the uni and just say, look, how can you help us? You know,
just be honest about
be honest.
The kind of limitations of your group and say
every
what
group's
can we
going
do?
to have limitations.
Yeah.
You know, you might not have an artist, or you might not have an artist who can do like 3D modeling, or you might not have someone who knows animation. You know, just literally just go ask for help. You know, that's what the uni's for. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some fantastic support, especially from our supervisor, Sokol. He's been, you know, since day one, he's been in our corner fighting for us and, you know, making sure that we, you know, he points us in the right direction for any resources that we need, getting us in touch with the right lecturers to be able to talk and, you know, get that further knowledge.
Yeah.
And so it's been fantastic having him assist us, you know, just being there. And, you know, we luckily, we had the opportunity to go to Insomnia 72 as well.
Yeah, 72.
72. We went to Insomnia 72 and, you know, we put in the application ourselves, done everything, but when it came to, you've been accepted and everything, it was a case of, actually, we don't really have the funds to do this.
Yeah.
We're students living on slim pickings. Yeah. So
typical student fare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, having the uni help get us out there and has been fantastic. So yeah, to any other teams that might be, you know, come into the third year, or not even necessarily come into the third year, you know, just put out applications for things like Insomnia or like any of these events, and
I will
ask.
It was a little before your time, but we had a staff member who historically was very much focused on saying to every student that had a pulse to apply for the rookies, you know. But those kind of opportunities, like you say with Insomnia or with anything else, they exist, and you might get selected if you put your name down, but you definitely won't if you don't.
Oh, 100%. You miss 100% of shots you don't take. And we put ourselves down for Insomnia basically as a joke. We were just looking at, what are some fun things we can do? We saw Insomnia, we were like, that'll be funny to do. Let's just put in the application, you know. It was like 3 minutes of paperwork. And then the next day we got the acceptance letter, and we were like, oh, wow, okay. So, you know, it was a real Hail Mary for us.
But it worked out. Now, we are fast approaching the end of our time for this, but kind of closing notes, I will let you now shamelessly replug, you know, Cosmic Cowboy, where can people find it? If they want to follow you, where can they find you? Twitter, LinkedIn, anything like that?
So Instagram is at Summit Game Studio. So is the LinkedIn. Wishlist on Steam's Cosmic Cowboy. And TikTok.
We've got TikTok. Yes. Some memes. That's Cosmic Cowboy Game, I think.
You think you're running it?
If you want to plug yourselves as well, you can, if people want to follow you on Twitter or anything else.
Follow me on LinkedIn, Jack Mulford. I always post this every 5 seconds, so.
Yeah, I would say the same, just Blue Probot on LinkedIn. But yeah, the biggest one is Steam, Cosmic Cowboy, add to the wish list, you know. It's free and it massively helps us out. There's also a Kickstarter if you want to give us money.
Maybe start with that one.
Shameless plug, give us money, please. That is on Kickstarter. You can find links to that basically from anywhere that we've mentioned. We've tried to plaster that. But yeah, Kickstarter or Steam, those are the biggest two you can do to help us out, and it is massively appreciated.
Well, thank you for taking the time. It's been lovely to chat with you all, and I think that brings us to the end of this segment. So thank you.
Thank you very much.